Right. Hopefully, you've all had a good go at the Latin Regulus, the set text. As you're probably aware, there is an equivalent Greek one as well. So, seeing as we're not back at school yet and nobody knows when we're going to be back, we're going to have a go at this one as well, at least to make a start on it. So, we're not losing too much time. The passage which we've chosen for you rather, is an extract from a chap called Lucian. It's entitled "The Isle of the Blest," but it comes from a bigger work which is known as the Vera Historia. It's got unusually got a Latin title, even though it's a Greek text. But we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Let's give you a little bit of background. Lucian himself is writing in Greek. He's not Greek. He's from somewhere in Roman Syria. He's writing in the 2nd century AD, so it's not a classical piece of Greek literature. It's not from the 5th century BC. It's from the 2nd century AD. And Greek probably wasn't his first language either. His first language was probably some sort of dialect of Aramaic, which likely would have been Syriac. So he's not Greek, he's not speaking Greek, but he is writing in Greek, which actually just shows you the influence of the Greek language well into the Roman period. What does he write about? Well, he's interested in satire and rhetoric. A lot of the time, just generally taking the mickey out of people and out of works of literature, and this one is no exception. It might not, on the face of it, seem immediately funny, but we'll talk about it a little bit as we go through. Yeah, in particular, he's interested in mocking the sort of extremely outlandish events in very famous works of literature. So if you're thinking, things like Homer's Iliad or Homer's Odyssey, but also other Greek authors that you might not have heard of, the historian Herodotus undoubtedly influenced Lucian's work. And it's the way in which they present the events that they're talking about as if they're true historical events. Maybe you can't blame Homer too much for this because he's writing a work of epic poetry, which undoubtedly has been handed down through the generations to him in some way or another. Herodotus is in a slightly different place because he's writing what we would consider a work of history, although he refers to it as an inquiry. But some of the things which both of them contain, these sort of pivotal works of Greek literature, are undoubtedly just a little bit extreme in terms of the way in terms of what it is that you're supposed to believe. So this work itself focuses on Lucian himself. He's a character within the work, and he and some comrades set off on an epic journey in the style of Homer. So it contains a sea voyage. They go out on a boat and they head off on a voyage, and they voyage through what were called the Pillars of Hercules, that point where Spain almost touches the north tip of Africa, and they voyage out into the Atlantic. So that sort of voyage is typical of epic works of literature. There's obviously the voyage in Homer's Odyssey. That's where we get the word an Odyssey from, but also Virgil's Aeneid as well, which was a very well-known piece of work, a piece of literature by the time that Lucian is writing. So there's the voyage element to it. The work then takes a slightly more sci-fi style turn. By some people, Lucian's True History is known as the first work of science fiction, but you can judge that yourself if you like. As they voyage through the Pillars of Hercules, and they're whipped up by a whirlwind which carries them up to the moon, and there's a war between the King of the Sun and the King of the Moon. Again, war is a very common theme, a central theme in works of epic literature. So obviously Homer's Iliad focuses on the war between the Greeks and the Trojans. And then there's a description of life on the moon. And this is something which maybe you're not so familiar with, but ancient historians didn't limit themselves just to the writing of history. They wrote about ethnography as well, the study of civilizations and their rituals and their cultures and so on. And a lot of this appears in Herodotus's history, which is a history of the Greeks and the Persians, centered on the events of the Persian War in the 5th century BC. So all of that happens before our extract starts, and by the time our extract we get to the bit that we're going to study, Lucian and his men have made it back down to Earth. They're no longer on the moon, and they've continued their voyage. They've been swallowed up by a whale in the style of Moby Dick, and have fought their way out. They've discovered a number of new islands. They're in a sea of milk. One of the islands is made of cheese, so you can see that it's all got a bit farcical. And then eventually they come to where our story starts, which is the island of the Blest, which is a kind of vision of the ancient idea of Elysium. So it's an island where long dead heroes live, heroes of the Trojan War, and pivotal figures in the ancient world, including people like Homer. So part of our extract will focus on Homer as well. What Lucian's trying to achieve here is to highlight the idiocy, the lunacy of some of the things which are just commonly believed in the ancient world. And he calls his is known as a true story because he admits right from the very beginning that his story is in fact just a pack of lies, whereas other ancient authors present their accounts as if they are true, and thus his is a true story because you know from the beginning that it's a lie. I think that's quite clever. You may or may not, but you can think what you will of it. Just to talk you through a little bit of the PDF. Obviously we're here on the title page at the moment. There is a little introduction just here at the beginning of the PDF, which will tell you basically the things that I've just told you, but feel free to go through and read it. And then the layout is much the same as the Latin pamphlet. So you get the text on the left-hand side. If you print it off, if you can, I mean, you may not be able to, but if you do and print it off in a double-sided way, it will then present itself as a booklet. So on this page, which we're on at the moment, will be on the left-hand side, and you've got the Greek text, vocabulary. Quite a lot of vocabulary at the beginning because there's a lot of technical terms that are used. And then underneath the vocabulary, you've got notes. Anything which is in bold here should, I hope, be in the notes underneath, but I may have missed something out, who knows. And then very occasionally you get these little bits of cultural insight here where I've had a little bit of space to fill. And then on the right-hand page, you've got the text broken down into shorter sentences with spaces for you to write your own translation. So if you can print it off and do it in the booklet, that's great. If you can't, just keep a running translation as you go, somewhere safe. And then when we get back to school, both for this and for the Latin version, I will provide you with printouts of the booklet, and we'll have to write them up at some point. But for the moment, let's just focus on making sure that we are actually reading and doing some Greek. So that's great. So we're going to jump in with the text. The very first extract, we have landed on the Isle of the Blest, and there's been Lucian and his men are considered somewhat of a threat. So they've been taken to court and have been basically charged with sort of being curious, I think is the way that it's termed, but I can't remember precisely. And they've been told, okay, we won't worry about that. We'll deal with that when you die. You'll be judged then. But for the moment, you, Lucian, and your companions can stay for 7 months on the Isle of the Blest with the heroes. So he's starting off with a description of what the city on the Isle of the Blest looks like. So there will be a lot of technical terms. There's lots of terms for materials, different types of sort of rocks and wood and that sort of thing, but it's all in the vocab underneath, and I will talk you through it now. So just follow along, and hopefully that will mean you can produce your own translation to keep for yourself. So we're going to start right from the very beginning. You've got Outer men, un her polis, passa crucer. Let's just stop there for a moment. So that section is missing a verb. It needs a verb to be. But there isn't one there. So you need to put one in. So outer men un her polis. Well, un and so therefore men on the one hand, but you can deal with that as you wish. Outer is obviously feminine, agreeing with her polis. So they go together. Okay. So this city, or the city itself, outer her polis. And so the city itself, passa comes from passa pan, so all. So passa cruce is all of gold. Yeah, it's all gold basically. This city, so the city itself is no word for is, but put it in, is all gold. Todetekos periketai smaragdion. Sorry, I'll say that again. Todetekos periketai smaragdinon. Todetekos, but the wall. Tekos is a word you should know. Maybe and would be better for de here. So, and the wall, periketai, surrounds. There's nothing for it to say what it surrounds. So you might have to just put in an it something there. And the wall surrounding it, smaragdinon, is made of emeralds. So again, it's a technical term. It's not a word you're ever likely to come across again, smaragdinon. But you know, it's obviously important in this context. Okay, so the city itself is all gold, and the wall surrounds it is made of emeralds, and there is a wall of emeralds surrounding it. Either would work. Pule de asin hepta. You've got a verb here, asin. It's obviously asin would usually be translated as they are, but here it's easier translated as there are, I think. So pulai de asin, there are gates, hepta. There are 7 gates. Okay, and this, if you take a look down at the note underneath about the city walls, you may already be aware, but if you're not, most ancient cities, with the notable exception of Sparta, but we won't get into that now, were surrounded by city walls. So they're kind of like very large castles. They're fortified on the outside, and each city has gates so you can get in and out. Okay. Here there are 7. So Pulaides in Hepta. There are 7 gates, and then those gates are described. Passai, monoxuloi, kiramorminoi. So passai again from passapan, all of them, monoxuloi. So this word is a compound of 2 words. You can probably work out what it means, but monok comes from monos, meaning alone or lonely, as in monopoly. And then the xuloi section comes from xulon, which means wood. Okay, so monoxuloi as a compound word means of a single trunk of wood. So there's a lot in that one single word, but literally single wood. Okay, so there are 7 gates, all a single trunk, and then there's this adjective here, kinamorminoi, which again is a technical term, one you probably never see again, but it means of cinnamon wood. So passai monoxuloi kinamorminoi is all of them made of a single trunk of cinnamon wood. There's a lot in that there, which you just need to sort of infer. Okay, but you can see where he's going with this. So we've got a golden city, a wall of emerald. Tekos is singular, so it is a single wall, but you can commonly refer to these things as walls if you want. A wall of emeralds surrounds it. There are 7 gates, passai monoxuloi, all a single trunk, kinamorminoi, of cinnamon wood. Okay, he's trying to create an impression of a very grand city, something which is clearly full of opulence and wealth, because obviously this is the land of heroes, so it needs to look the part. And he goes on. To mentoi edaphos tot tes poleos, kai he entos tu tecus ger elephantine. So, mentoi. Mentoi always comes second, but it usually is easier taken first. However, to edaphos, the ground, the land, the soil, maybe. But he just refers to what's underfoot. So, however, the ground, tot tes poleos, of the city, tot obviously in the middle because it's referring us back to the ground. The ground of the city. Kai he entos tu tecus, and the hair is going to need ger to go with it as well, actually, sorry. And the land, entos tu tecus, inside the wall, okay. And then elephantine, you can possibly guess that that's got something to do with elephants. The Greek word for an elephant is elephas or elephantos in the genitive. So elephantine is an adjective which means of ivory. So, however, the ground of the city and the land inside the wall is, again, there's no verb to be. This is quite common in Greek. Is made of ivory, or just maybe is of ivory would be fine. Okay, so again, continuing that sense of opulence. Very, very wealthy to have sort of paving slabs of ivory going under your feet. The description continues. Naoi de panton theon berulu lithu oikodomemenoi. Naioi are temples. It's not a word that you've seen before for temples. It can mean shrines as well. So shrines, and then Panton Theon. You have got a det there as well, so you might want to use that to link. And shrines, Panton Theon, of all the gods. And again, there's no verb here, so you're probably going to want a verb to be in. So, and there are shrines of all the gods. And then the shrines are described with this word, oikodomemenoi, over here. There are shrines of all the gods built, and then two genitives here in the middle, berulu lithu, of beryl stone. Again, this is technical stuff. Beryl is a mineral. It's a blue-green stone, but it's a precious stone, basically. So there are shrines built. There are shrines of all the gods built of beryl stone. It doesn't really matter if you know what beryl is or isn't, but it just know it's a precious stone. Even more, kai bormoi en autois megistoi monolithoi amethustinoi. Again, that word might have made your ears prick up. Amethustinoi. Kai bormoi, and altars en autois, in them. So, and the altars in them, i.e. in the temples, in the shrines. Again, no verb to be, so you're going to need to put one in. And the altars in them, megistoi, are very big. Monolithoi, again, same principle as monoxuloi up here, a single piece of wood, a single trunk of wood. Monolithoi means of a single stone, made of one stone. And the altars inside them are very big. Don't forget the superlative here, are very big, made of a single block of stone. And then over here, amethustinoi, made of a single block of amethyst. So, and the altars inside them are very large, made of a single block of amethyst. Again, amethyst is a precious stone, rather. So you're going to, it's that sense of opulence again. Everything is very, very classy in the land of the blessed. This is a little bit trickier. F horn. This is epi, which you obviously have come across, sort of in, on. Epi horn, and then it's just elided in the middle because you've got this rough breathing, and because you've got these vowels clashing here. If this was epi, you'd have an iota at the end, and you'd have horn over here, and it's softened over here. The pi has changed to a phi because you've got this running in with the rough breathing over here. So rather than epi horn, which is quite hard to say, you get f horn instead. So on which. So that's all that means. It looks more complicated than it is. On which poiusi tas hekatombas. Poiusi is a word you should know. So they make tas hekatombas, their sacrifices. Hekatombas literally is a sacrifice of 100 oxen. You may have heard the term a hecatomb before, but I would just translate it here as sacrifices, I think, because they make their hecatombs doesn't really mean very much in English. So on which they make their sacrifices. Okay. He's still not finished with the description yet. He's going to go on around the outside of the city now. So peri de ten polin re potamos muru tu kalistu. So peri de ten polin, around the city. Re. Re again is a verb you will not have come across. It's a reor, which means to run or to flow, and that makes sense because you've got potamos afterwards. So around the city runs a river, and again you've got genitives modifying this. Muru, a river of perfume. Muru in Greek is just the general term for perfume, but obviously it's linked with an English word you'll come across, myrrh. If you think of the gifts that were brought to Jesus, gold, frankincense and myrrh, but in Greek it's just used generally to mean perfume a lot of the time. So around the city runs a river of perfume, and not just any old perfume, tu kalistu muru, of the finest perfume. Okay. Toplatos percheon hekaton basilikon. Toplatos again is a word which you won't have come across, but it means sort of the breadth or the width. So the width, i.e. of the river, okay, and again no verb is, but it's hekaton, 100, percheon basilikon. It's 100, or it's of 100 of royal cubits. Percheon is a cubit, and basilikon obviously comes from is an adjective from the word basilaus, meaning a king. So the width of the river is 100 royal cubits. A cubit again is a term you won't have come across, but it's an ancient measurement. Originally, the length between one's wrist and one's elbow, so it's probably about a foot-ish, depending on how big your arm is. But he's just giving us an idea of the scale which we're talking about here. They're royal cubits, I believe, because they're measurements which are standardized in Persia, but don't quote me on that. Good. So, around the city runs a river of the finest perfume. The width of the river is 100 royal cubits. Bathos depente. Again, no verb, but bathos is the depth, i.e. so how far it's going to come up your legs if you stand in it. So bathos depente, and the depth is 5. And again, you need to extrapolate a little bit. 5 cubits. He's already mentioned them once, so he's not going to mention them again. So the width is 100 cubits, and the depth is 5. Horste. You're going to need to imply a little bit here. This is result, which is something you're used to, but it's just a little bit compressed. So the depth is 5, horste, with the result that nein just means to swim. So with the result that to swim, eumaros, easily. So it just needs a little bit of filling out, really, with the result that it is possible to swim easily, i.e. you could swim from one side of the river to the other. So it's not a moat, it's not designed to stop you from getting in necessarily. It's an attractive feature of perfume which you could swim across if you wanted to. Okay. Lutra de estin autois. Oops, sorry, apologies for that. Let's pull that back. Lutra de estin autois oikoi megaloi hualenoi toi kina mormoi enkiomenoi. So lutron is a bathhouse. So lutra is plural, it's neuter. So bathhouses, estin autois. So there are to them, autois, to them, lutra, bathhouses. So they have bathhouses. This autois is what's known as a possessive dative. So to them there are bathhouses. So they have bathhouses. Oikoi. Oikos is a house. You more commonly have seen it as oikia, but it does have a masculine form as well. So oikoi houses, megaloi, hualinoi. So great houses, and then hualinoi, of glass or of crystal. So they have bathhouses. They have bathhouses, great houses. You can also translate oikoi as chambers or buildings, maybe great buildings made of crystal. So bathing is obviously quite a common part, particularly with, remember that Lucian, although he's writing in Greek, is writing in the 2nd century AD, so he's very Romanized, particularly in Syria. So he will have come across the Roman concept of bath houses before, and obviously the big impressive bath houses in Rome were monuments to wealth and opulence. Particularly of the person who made them or gifted them for the city. So he's trying to create the same idea here. There are bathhouses. They have bathhouses, great buildings made of crystal. And then the bathhouses themselves, you see they're oikoi, so they're masculine. They're described as enkaimenoi. And so that too is masculine. So sort of heated, literally burning within. Kaior is to burn something, and then that egg at the beginning is actually en, which is why it's pronounced en kaiomenoi. So burning within, so heated, toi kinamormoi, and this is a dative used as an instrument, so with cinnamon wood. So it's the same sort of word as we had up here, kinamorminoi, but here, whereas that's an adjective, toi kinamormoi is the noun itself, cinnamon wood. So toi kinamormoi en kaiomenoi, heated with cinnamon wood. Finally, anti-mentoi tu hudatos entais puelois drossos therme estin. So mentoi again, however, so it always appears second. Anti, you'll have come across words like antibody or antifreeze. Anti in Greek means instead of something. So we tend to think of it in English as more sort of against something, but it literally means instead of. And it takes a genitive, which makes sense. So, however, instead, tu hudatos, hudatos is the genitive form of hudor, water. So instead of water, entais puelois, in the baths, the bathtubs. So lutra are bath houses, and tais puelois are the bathtubs themselves that you would get in the bathhouses. So anti mentoi tu hudatois, instead of water, however, entais puelois, in the baths, drossos therme estin. So drossos is dew. So again, it's very opulent. It's a bit like the image of Cleopatra bathing in ass's milk rather than water. We don't bathe in water on the Isle of the Blest. We bathe in dew instead. So, however, instead of water in the baths, drossos, dew, therme. Drossos, although it may not look it, is feminine. It's like hodos. It's one of those ones that looks masculine but is feminine. Instead of water in the baths, there is therme drossos, there is warm dew, and then you've just got the verb at the end, estin. So there is. So I hope that's useful. As always, contact if there are any difficulties or anything you didn't understand. Do try and produce a good, sensible translation, something which you can actually work from. It's important that we have a sort of working document when we get back to school. Take care. Bye-bye.